To get started with step 1, you'll need to draw your design into a grid. I'm using Word right now because it's easy to move things around and I don't have to worry about erasing things. You can also use graph paper. So first you want to figure out the design, and your design needs to be so I'm going to insert a table. And my table will be 14 columns by 15 rows. I only need 13 columns and 14 rows, but I'm adding an additional column and row so that I can label them, because that makes the next step even easier. So I'll start by highlighting all of the first row, and I want really small text so it doesn't distort the I want small text so that it does not distort the grid. And then I'll do the same thing to the first column. So I'll start just by labeling each of the columns at the very top. And then all of the rows going down. So I have everything labeled, and now I'm going to draw my design in. My design is the letter M. So to fill in the squares right here under if I click on home, there's a paint bucket here, and I can click on this arrow and change the color. For this initial drawing, I'm just going to use black to color in the design that I want. And I just click on the paint bucket, and then I go over and click to the next area where I want that bucket to be. And I've searched up block letters or grid letters on the internet so I could find a guide to make sure that I get these to look the way that I want to. You can also just start drawing into your design and change things paper, and then start filling in the squares where there's 50% of the line in it, of the area that's colored in. So you're going to work with two different colors, one on the bottom layer and one on the top layer. And this design that I'm drawing in right now is the bottom layer, but it's going to be brought up to the top layer. So when this is woven, the entire layer is going to be whatever color is coming up from the top. So right now I'm using black to come up from the top. So the entire thing would be black, but I'm just drawing my design in to start with a guide, and then I'll change that later. And what's going to happen is the design is going to be separated by the top layer. Each row and each column will be separated. So you can see right here, I have 2 squares on the top, 2 on the side, 2 on the bottom, and 2 on the other side. So this and the letter M is all centered. So if I wanted to do a different design, I would just go ahead and fill that in with black or whatever color you choose. I'm using black and white right now because it's really easy to see. So now that I have my design finished, this is what I want to come up from the top. I need to figure out the plan with the top and the bottom. So I'm selecting this entire table, and I'll go ahead in Word. So I'm going to make sure to save this, and I want to save it as double pickup plan step 1. So I've copied the M, and now I need to open up a new page. So here's the new page, and I've copied and pasted that grid with the M that I just drew. And so now what I'll do is I need to put a column in between each one of these columns and a row in between each one of the rows. And as I do this, I'm going to just add a different color to it. So I'll start here. So to put another column in, you just start by clicking on one of the rows, and I'm going to start by adding all the rows first. Now I go to Layout, and right here I can insert above or below. So I want to insert below, so I'm having a row all the way across here. I'm selecting that entire row, and I'll go back to table design and shading, and I'm just going to shade this with the dark blue. So all of my top layer is going to be dark blue. So I go now to column or to row 1, and I want to go back to Layout, insert below, so I have a new row right here, and then I'll go to table design and color it in dark blue. So this entire, so I go back down to row 2, this entire new every other row and every other column is going to be dark blue. So I insert below, table design, shading. Now when I get to column or to row 3, there's some black drawn in row 3. So what you see here is when I go ahead and insert a new row below, the black is extended. So that area where I drew the M is extended. I don't want that to be extended. So I'm going to start by saying no color and go back to the shading and add the dark blue. So it's easiest to do this right as you're adding the rows. And again, this can be done on graph paper. And instead of deleting the color and adding a new color, I just went ahead and added the color all the way across, which works also. So Layout, insert below, table design, shading. So this is done all the way down, and then it's going to be done all the way across. So you can see the pattern's getting really distorted right now, but that will even out once I add the new columns also. And if you don't have Word, you can just go in by hand with graph paper and draw this in. Now my very last row, I'm going to go ahead and add another dark blue layer, and this is really just an aesthetic choice. I want it to be surrounded by the dark blue. It looks more finished to me. So you can see at the very top, there's a dark blue layer, and now at the very bottom, there's a dark blue layer. So now I need to go into the columns, And I'm going to start adding to the left because I want the first drawing. So this area where the numbers are right here, this will not be part of the weaving. So actually I could go ahead and highlight this whole column here, and I can remove the color. So I can see this is just a label here. It's not part of the design. So now I need to go to layout, and I'm going to insert to the left. So you can see right here on the top right corner of these insert areas, I can insert to the left, and then I want to go ahead and shade it with the dark blue. So I will be going, now I'm going to insert to the right, so all the way across now, inserting a new column, and then I'll be shading that blue. So I do this to all the columns, and you'll see once I start doing this, the M letter that's now stretched out really long, it's going to even out. And the one thing that I have to be careful with on Word is that as the grid gets larger, it might be too large for one page, so I may have to shrink it a little bit, and we'll do that if it gets to that point. So you can see the M is starting to even out. Now the very end, this 13th column here, I'm going to go ahead and add another column just so I can have the blue on either side. So you can see here now, the M right here is where the second layer is. So now that I have the top layer and then the bottom layer is not just going to be a different color where this design is, rather that design is going to come up above and weave into the pattern. So what I need to do now, if I want to get my the pattern for weaving correct, the areas where there are two black squares and they connect with one another. So the weft is going to go all the way through. So underneath, the weft is woven underneath in these white spots that will be light blue eventually. So I can go in and color each one of those light blue. But what I'm going to do first is the areas where there are two black spots that are connected, or three, I'll go ahead and highlight, and this is going to be woven over this top layer. So there's a black spot here, a black spot here, and it's going to be light blue. So I go ahead and fill that in with light blue. And what I can do is also go all the way across, and all these white spots will be filled in with light blue. And this is the sample that I wove is with dark blue and light blue. That's why I'm using these colors. So you would use whatever colors you want, or you could just use black and white as a template. So this is a template for weaving. So now the third row here, all of these white spots that are surrounded So here I'm just at this end part. I can fill the rest of this in later, but I'm just gonna go ahead and start filling in the areas where the M is drawn with the black squares and connecting those because I missed a couple. And it's easier to connect them right now before I start filling in the other squares, especially in this area where there's not a ton of black. All right, so now I need to fill in the warp, and I'm gonna go ahead and start with the M and fill that warp in. So anywhere on this grid where there's a number, so the white spots that have numbers, that's the warp. So the first area where there, I want to go ahead in that letter and highlight it, and then I'm going to add the light blue to it. And I'm only doing this in areas where the weft is all connected, where that letter M is picked up. So, and I'm also only using the areas, filling in the columns where there is a number in the white square at the top, because that's for the second layer. So I want to make sure only to fill in the areas that have these continuous weft areas and connect all of those. So you can see while I'm doing this, it's really connecting the letter M. It's filling those things that those squares in, so the M is more recognizable as the letter M. So I have this area. So this area is picked up and woven. So when you're weaving, you'll weave underneath on the second layer, and then it comes up above and weaves over that top layer, just in this area where the M is. And the tutorial will go through step by step. So now what I'll do is go ahead and fill in all these white squares with the light blue. Those will remain in the back. I just wanted to make sure to get this M area lifted up above. So you can see there's a grid structure that's lifted above the top layer. So this is why it's called pick up double weave, because the back layer is picked up from the top layer. So there are two layers, and it's picked up into a pattern and woven on top, and then woven on the back and the rest of the area.